And we look at all of this with Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, Director at CANRAD at the Nelson Mandela University for the conversation on this, the EFF growing in the past 10 years, as we've heard. Professor Mngomezulu, I'd like to just start with this issue. Earlier on, General Bantu Holomisa reflected on how he visited Marikana with the EFF leaders Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu just after they were expelled from the ANC. And of course, Julius Malema has dubbed this celebration a festival of the poorest of the poor. Do you think just that particular statement and some of these regional leaders who've come there to support Julius Malema and this party speaks to that, belies that statement, a festival of the poorest of the poor, a party that cares about what has been described as in the past the dejected, dismembered and forgotten black communities?
Thank you very much, Tsepito, and good evening to your viewers. First of all, congratulations to EFF for hosting this event and for living their dream of filling FNB Stadium. Coincidentally, I'm just about 30 minutes away from the stadium, but I come for other engagements, so I couldn't go and see for myself. I've been watching it from a distance. But to answer your question, truth be told, the EFF has indeed made its presence felt in South African politics. And the fact that Malema did not hide the fact that one of the reasons why they formed the EFF was because they derived the inspiration from the Marikana massacre. He indicated that one of the people from Marikana, in fact, approached him and then said he must form a political party outside of the existing political parties so that that party could be closer to the masses. So that is the message that was put across. And the fact that Julius Malema and his party has been welcomed in Marikana year in and year out attests to that. And the fact that some of the leaders from the governing party, for instance, have been bored wherever they go there, then of course confirms what Malema has been saying and what some of the attendees at this particular rally were saying. So as for Bantu Holomisa, we know he was in the ANC and then he moved out of the ANC to form his own party, the UDM. Then, of course, he has also been indicating that he has close ties with Marikana. So, yes, indeed, I think that his statements are not unfounded.
And the radicalization, the revolution that Julius Malema and his party members have been pushing, particularly on the issue of land ownership and restoration, we've seen them occupy land at some points throughout history to really push forward the point that it's time for change. It doesn't tolerate the ANC's slow pace. In fact, these are some of the policy diversions between the two. But have they been able to push that agenda successfully, given the poor state of human settlements, given the growing number of informal settlements and, the dire circumstances when it comes to delivery of basic services?
No, they have not been able to achieve that goal, and they will never achieve it for specific reasons. South Africa is a constitutional democracy. So even if you want to effect change, that change cannot be done at the expense of the constitution. So whatever you are doing should not contravene the constitution of the country. Because even the constitutions of different political parties are supposed to be aligned to the constitution of the country. So it's for that reason, therefore, that as much as what the EFF is saying is correct, because you know that in 1913, land was taken away from its owners, that is the black people, and then 87% was given to the whites, only 13% was left for black people to share, and even that 13% was not arable land. So it is a fact, a historical fact. But the way you do it, which is what they normally refer to as the modus operandi, is not the correct one because it's in contravention of the constitution. If, for example, you invade land and you take land forcefully, then you are seen to be in contravention of the law, and then, of course, law agencies will be on your case. So that is the reason why they have not been successful. But as for the call itself, it is a genuine call, and we know that up to this day, there are people who are still looking for land, they can't find it, and there are people who are owning acres of land which they don't use. So indeed, his argument is valid, but the manner in which he has been doing it together with his party is not the correct one. That is why he has not succeeded in that area.
But the calls that he's made, although some have even labeled it as hate speech, are they not landing on fertile land or fertile minds, I might say? Because, for instance, if you look at what the EFF espouses to be, how it characterizes itself from the beginning, that of being a Marxist-Leninist party that is influenced in some cases by Frantz Fanon's ideals. People in South Africa have said that they are tired of some of the policy directives of the ANC that don't seem to be moving democratic South Africa in a definitive direction. Especially if we look at 2024, it will be a significant year when we look back at 1994. There's a Social Research Foundation poll that suggests that the EFF could actually surpass the ANC in the Western Cape.
No, those speculations, in fact, cannot be totally dismissed. The reason is simple. If you make radical statements, you are most likely to garner support. But then when it comes to implementation, it's a different ballgame altogether. So I wouldn't be surprised if there will be instances where the EFF might surpass the ANC as the results, the speculations or the projections we are citing are saying. I wouldn't be surprised if that would be the case. But overall, I don't think that the EFF would surpass the ANC. The ANC will definitely go down, as it has been happening. If you look at the trend of the elections, not going too far, starting from 2016, a local government election, 2019, general election, 2021, local government election, the ANC has been going down, the DA has been going down. The parties that have shown an upward trend is the EFF, the IFP, and the Freedom Front Plus. And looking at how the EFF is projecting itself, it stands a chance of increasing even more come 2024. But then increasing support does not necessarily translate to unseating the ANC, working alone. In other words, doing it unilaterally. But then what is going to happen is that you have other political parties that are not determined to win the election, but their focus is on reducing the support of the ANC, and then hope that they will then go into government through a coalition government. So basically, I would say that Malema is making the correct noises, and then, of course, it's garnering support in the process. But I don't think that the support that is getting will be enough for the EFF, for example, to unseat the ANC, given that it has a signature nationally. Then, of course, they stand a chance to unseat the DA because the DA is in command of the Western Cape, but it's not in command of any of the other provinces. They do have pockets of support. So with the rate that the EFF is growing, then it stands a chance of displacing the DA as the official opposition. Then if the ANC fails to get the 50+1 threshold, and other political parties come together to form a minority coalition, then in that case, it would mean then obviously that the EFF will be a force to be reckoned with.
And I want to look at its core constituency. For some pundits, it's a young, unemployed youth, and some have even questioned their loyalty in terms of the outcome at the polls, when there were suggestions at some point that the EFF could hope for a 20% support mark. Some have said perhaps that is not realistic. But I just want to understand, also just looking at the power broking that the EFF has played, especially at municipal council level. It's been in cooperations, not necessarily coalitions, but some of those have actually broken down governance. Will voters still trust that?
There are two things that are weakening the EFF. The EFF is a growing party, as I've said, but there are two things that are weakening the EFF. One is the radical approach. And I'm glad that over the years, the EFF has tried to tone down on that one. So it is gradually winning that one. But then the other one is inconsistency that the party has in fact demonstrated. And you will remember that just the other day, they were saying that they would rather vote for a ghost than vote for the ANC. And then a few months down the line, they were discussing the possibility of working together with the ANC in Gauteng and in KwaZulu-Natal. At one point, they were supporting the IFP in KwaZulu-Natal, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, the leader of the EFF announced that all 8 deputy mayors must resign with immediate effect, which then raised questions that if you were to go into a coalition with the EFF, would that coalition be sustainable? So those are some of the things that I think the party needs to look into, because the reality is that come 2024, if the ANC fails to get the 50+1 threshold, then coalition is definitely the road that we're going to go. Then which party then will the EFF find a home with and then work with in that particular coalition? Would that coalition be sustainable? Those are the questions that people are asking, which is one thing that is going to disadvantage the EFF, despite the fact that it is growing exponentially compared to other political parties, mainly the governing party and the opposition party, that is the ANC and the DA.
And I'd like to juxtapose what you've just said to what Julius Malema said earlier on when it comes to Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying that the people of South Africa should stand in solidarity with Vladimir Putin, along with other BRICS members, saying that what South Africa did to President Putin is a serious humiliation of a sitting president, even suggesting that were it the EFF, they would have stood by him. And there's been murmuring since the announcement that President Putin is not coming to South Africa, that even though it's been said that it was something that was negotiated, but that South Africa may have lost some modicum of trust from other BRICS countries. What are your thoughts around this and what Malema was voicing earlier on?
So truth be told, the ICC is taking us for a ride. Let us be honest about that. The ICC knew that Russia had attacked the Ukraine on 24 February 2022. And if there were any atrocities that were committed, there is Interpol, they should have used that, but they didn't. Number two, they waited until the date of the BRICS summit in August was announced. Then they worked through the ICC to issue the arrest warrant on President Putin, which is the same situation that we found ourselves in 2015 in the case of al-Bashir. So I would say that things have gone wrong. But having said that, we have a country that is governed constitutionally, and the EFF is one of the 14 political parties in government, and the government's position is that we are going to respect the constitution of the country first and foremost, but then we'll also try not to basically disrespect international law, so to speak. But then there are other countries that don't respect the same international law, which then makes Malema's point very serious, because Malema is saying that we are friends, meaning the EFF were friends with Putin. Putin is us and we are Putin. But then the government does not take that position. The government is saying that we are not siding with the West and we are not siding with the East. And some people are accusing South Africa of being indecisive. They are basically saying that South Africa failed to take a position at the UN General Assembly. My view is South Africa took a position, and the position was that of being non-partisan. And being non-partisan means that we are neither siding with Russia nor siding with the Ukraine, which is historically grounded, in fact, because most of our military fighters, that is the MK fighters, some of them trained in Russia, others trained, of course, in the Ukraine. And the Ukraine was part of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic until 1991. So basically, Malema is making a point as a leader of a political party, but then, of course, he still has to remember what the government's position is, which government he's part of. So that is where maybe at the discussion we have to focus on, that he made a statement outside of government as a leader of a political party.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. Professor Bheki Mngomezulu is the director of CANRAD at Nelson Mandela University, just speaking to us about some of what came out of the EFF's 10th year anniversary earlier on. Celebrations are still continuing. We'll still have more.